Welcome to tonight's Tanya class. We are studying in Tanya chapter 20, Perek Chaf in Hebrew, which is chapter 20. Tonight's chapter in Tanya, and again we try to give the class complete, so this way you come for a class, you get the whole concept that we're studying today, but it happens to be chapter 20 of the book of Tanya, which has 53 chapters, and it comes in continuation to what we've been talking about the last few weeks. And I'll give this a brief summary just so you'll understand what we're talking about today. And that is, we are dealing with the life of the Beinoni. The Beinoni is the intermediate person, the one that is not a tzaddik, where he totally got rid of his animal soul, or not a Rasha who totally ignores his godly soul. We're dealing with the Beinoni, who basically his godly soul is alive and well, Baruch Hashem, and his animal soul is waiting to invade. So thankfully, in thought, speech, and action, there was never an invasion. There was never an invasion. Because in thought, speech, and action, he basically thinks only positive, only godly things in speech. He only says the right things, prays, studies, all good stuff. And in action, obviously, does all the good things and does not transgress. Thought, speech, and action. Now, we know thought, speech, and action are only garments. So when it comes to his mind and his heart, that's where the struggle takes place. And where the godly soul obviously is trying to fill it exclusively, but the animal soul is trying to creep in and take over. So the last few weeks, we discussed that the Alter Rebbe says, based on the first page of Tanya, the cover page of Tanya, that he's going. The Alter has made a commitment that he's going to show us how we can serve God with love and awe all day, with all the Torah and all the mitzvot, and it should be very, very easy. And again, it was based on a verse in the Torah. He wasn't making an empty promise based on his ideas, because in Deuteronomy it says, "Ki karov elecha davar ma'od." This thing to serve God with love and awe is very easy for you. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So the last 2 weeks we spoke about the idea that when a person's on self-sacrifice, boom, it's very easy. You don't want to be disconnected from God. We spoke of the fact that love comes from the fact that we have a godly soul, and because we have a godly soul, we're able to totally connect with God. This week, the author was going to take it a step further to show us that not only are we able to really serve God easily, thought, speech, and action, our mind, our heart, with our emotions of love and awe for God. We should be totally fired in always. But here he's going to show us that by every single one of the 613 commandments, the 248 positive, the 365 negative, the rabbinical commandments, we can do every one of those easily with a tremendous love for God and be in awe of God. In other words, God's presence will be real with us, within us, in everything that we do. And therefore, when it comes, hi, welcome. Therefore, any mitzvah, positive or negative, biblically obligated or rabbinically obligated, we will do so very easily and very happily with tremendous love and tremendous awe for God. We're just giving an overview. So, perfect timing. So in this week, the author is going to show us how that is possible with all the mitzvot. Not like when it's coming to, all right, oh my gosh, I'm not giving up my relationship with God. Or, you know what I mean, this is like, I'm going to go to the gas chamber saying that, even the simple mitzvot, Shabbos, Kashrus, Tefillin, Mezuzah, name any, you can have that same approach of real enthusiasm to doing the mitzvot, prayer, Torah study, just like you would have in non-negotiable mitzvot. So the author comes along and he says, how am I going to explain that to you? He says we're going to discuss that based on a very, very important concept in Judaism, and all throughout Kabbalah it's explained. And here in Tanya, this is the first time the author really gets into it, in chapter 20, and that is where he talks about the unity of God. The unity of God. What does it mean to be unity? So he starts off by saying that we know that God gave us 613 commandments. But the first thing that God gave us was the 10 commandments at Mount Sinai. Now, when God gave us the 10 commandments, there were 10, but there was something unique about the first two. What was unique about the first two of the 10 commandments? God himself said those two commandments. And when God said those two of the 10 commandments, people fainted. Got to revive everybody. Right? Mass production of a CPR. Got to bring everyone back alive. And they begged, the Jews here begged God, we can't handle it. So Moshe Rabbeinu actually was an intermediary for the last 8. But the first 2 commandments we received directly from God. God said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am God, your God. And Lo yeh lecha elokim acherim. Those 2 are the first 2 commandments. So it's brought down in Kabbalah and many holy books that in those 2 commandments, I am God, your God, and you shouldn't have any other gods, in there is embedded all 613 commandments. And today, this concept of embedded is much easier to understand. Today you can have a little, like a chip, small in the size of a finger. You can have the whole Torah and many other books in this tiny chip. So the concept of embedded is something which we can comprehend to today, from a practical example. Or like you have a phone. You know how much data goes in the phone from a chip that's a speck. So the first 2 commandments are what? I am God, your God, and you shouldn't have any other gods. In there is the basis for all the 248 positive commandments included in the Anochi, the first one. The 367 negative are included in the second one, which is don't have any other gods. And there's actually an opinion that says that even the all 613 are included into the first commandment of God. I am God, your God. Mm-hmm. Now, what does that mean practically? That means that that the essence of all Judaism, the essence of all 630 commandments, the essence of faith in God, true faith in God, lies where? Lies in the first 2 commandments. So if you get the first 2 commandments, you got them all. But I don't mean superficially. If you really get the first 2 commandments, you got them all. So what does that mean that in the first 2 commandments, all the commandments are there? What does that mean? So here the author explains the whole idea of what we said before about the idea of Achdus Hashem. What is Achdus Hashem? Achdus Hashem is what? The unity of God. What does it mean, unity of God? So we all know that the prayer service that we pray, what's the highlight or the centerfold, the center point of the prayer service? Huh? What? Well, sure, Hashem. Which prayer? Which prayer? Not the Shema. Very good. The Shema. Very good. In other words, the whole prayer service, starting with the blessings and the sacrifices and praising God, Sukkot the Zimmer that's called, and then the blessing of the Shema leading up to the Shema. It's like climbing a mountain uphill. And then from the Shema, you start going down. The blessings afterwards, Shmon Esrei, and the Tachnun, days that you say Tachnun, Ashrei and Eleinu, etc. But what's the highlight of the prayer service? Shema. Matter of fact, the Shema we say how many times a day? We take the full Shema 3 times a day. Shacharis, Ma'ariv, before you go to sleep. And there's another one more time in the morning you say Shema in the preliminary prayers before the service. Now, what is the Shema? So the Shema is actually several sections, but what is, before the several sections, what is the Shema? Is that one line. What does it say in that one line? It says, Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, Hashem, we don't pronounce the name, Hashem Elokeinu, God our God, Hashem Echad. God, our God, Hashem, right, the infinite part of God, Echad is one. And where are you supposed to meditate? On the Echad. Now, Echad, there's many meditations for it. One God, 7 heavens, 1 earth, the 4 sides of the world, many meditations. What is the simple meaning of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad? Hear, O Israel, right? The Lord is God, the Lord is one. So what does that mean, one? So here we're proclaiming, as Jews, and whoever says it and believes it, there's one God. We have one God. We don't have 2 gods. 3, any number you want to pick. We have one God. That's a simple verse. And that is the unity of God. Comes along the Bal Shem Tov, and the Bal Shem Tov takes this a step further and gives us like a beautiful lens. We can see deeper into this Shema Yisrael. And he says, what does Shema Yisrael mean? Shema Hashem Echad, the oneness of God. Not that, this, like the simple meaning is, there's one God. Because when you're saying there's one God, what are you really saying? Oh, there's other gods. We accept one God. He says, no. Echad doesn't mean there's one versus 2, 3. Echad means, and we're gonna expand on this, that Echad means one. Hear, O Israel, God is one. What does it mean, one? One means not 1 versus 2, one in terms of oneness. Oneness. That means the only existence that exists is God. Think about this for a moment. The only existence that exists is God. So not only there's no other God, there's nothing else that exists. You get it? There's nothing.
There's only God.
There's not only God. There's no me. There's no you. There's no him. There's no her. There's no table. There's no walls. There's no chairs. Sounds funny, right? Sounds a little strange. First time you hear this, right? Guys have been here before, so it's not that shocking, right? But it's still hard to comprehend. Because the fact is, you see a me, and you see a you, and you do see a table that you feel, right, and has a certain shape, correct? And you see furniture, and you see lamps, and you see ceilings, right? And you see doors, and you see glass. But what does the Bal Shem Tov say? Guess what? It's all God.
It's all an illusion.
It's all
So
God.
are we
No,
a concept
again, did I say an illusion or I said God?
No, he said it's all
I said it's all God. That's
It's
not.
all God.
It's all God.
So are we a concept of God?
One sec. Let's first see what it says. Then we'll see what it's not. Okay, you can call it a concept illusion. You call it what you want, but the point is, echad means the oneness. The only thing that exists is all God. So in theory, you can say God, 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 right? It's all God. But the reality is, how can we call different people different names, and tables and chairs and pianos and lanterns and whatever it may be, right? And signs and wood and glass. Why is that?
Our ego separates everything when everything is one.
So
He doesn't see that.
this is where that's what we're going to get into today. To really understand, that's why I said. That's why I asked you guys in the beginning of class. Are you wearing your seatbelts? Because you could like get into this and wake up like, where am I? Where you're here. Okay. So what does that mean? The oneness of God. What does that mean? And this is very, very intense. Later on, there's actually a whole section in Tanya, a separate section called Shari Yichud, which goes into in greater depth. But in this chapter, the Alter Rebbe tackles the idea of, in Hebrew, it's called Achdus Hashem, based on the Bal Shem Tov, the oneness of God, as follows. Okay, so what does it mean, the oneness of God? That means like this. The truth is that the only real power and existence that exists is God. Now, we're going to take it from a few different angles. Okay, it's a complicated concept. Hopefully when we're done, it'll be a simpler concept. Not simple, simpler. Okay. On the other hand, you say to me, okay, Rabbi, but I see all these things, all these different things. And if it's all God, how come I don't see God?
Concealed in always.
Oh, very good. So basically, when God decided to create this world, how can you create a materialistic world? How can you create it? So God had to conceal himself.
Yeah.
Because if God was revealed, then you wouldn't have this world. You wouldn't see what you're seeing. You would not see what you're seeing. You would see godliness. But in order to create a world that you would not necessarily see God and godliness, he had to conceal himself. So here maybe comes in the word we used before, an illusion. So what looks like an illusion as a table, a chair, a person, is really an illusion, because the real power that we have, that we're here, someone created us and someone maintains us. If God didn't create us, A, and B didn't maintain us, where would we be? We wouldn't exist. So what is the real power? The physical existence that we see, or the real power that created and maintains us? The real power is the power that created us and maintains us.
And concealed within us.
And concealed within us. That's the real power. So again, the real power is the power that created us and maintains us. What we see, you want to call it an illusion, you want to call it a concealment, but if you want to call it what really it is, beyond the illusion and beyond the concealment, it's really God. It's all God. So therefore, tell me what in this world is not God.
There's nothing.
There's nothing that's not God. Everything is God.
Yes.
Everything is God, godly, etc. Yes, agreed. Certain things, let's say you go into a synagogue, right? You go into a holy place. You go to the temple, right? Holy place. What does that mean? The concealment is peeled off a little bit. You see a Torah. You're not going to say, hey, listen, it's a piece of parchment. It may be, even though it is. But you can see it's a holy object. If you see something, a destruction, so you're seeing more destruction. But the truth is, again, certain things have more of a concealment, less of a concealment. But it's irrelevant how much concealment it has. At the end of the day, what do you have? It's all God. So if you're able to look past the curtain, past the concealment, you're going to see in everything God and godliness. And that is the definition of what? Achdus Hashem. It's all one. So there's nothing in this world that exists other than God. So for example, let's say you're going, let's say God forbid someone gets sick, right? And you have to go to the doctor. The doctor's going to heal you. I ask you, who's going to heal you? The doctor or God?
God.
God's going to heal you. If the doctor thinks that he himself is going to heal you, he's arrogant, run. Far away. But if the doctor will tell you honestly, listen, it's in the hands of God, I'll try to be a vessel, you know you have a chance. The same thing with yourself. If you feel like, oh, you have the solution, you're in trouble. But if you feel like with the help of God we'll do something, guess what? You have a chance. Because ultimately the real power in this world is what? Is God. And since the real power in this world is God, and the only thing that really exists is God, so you always want to connect to the real thing, which is God and God's power. Now, now that we know this, what do we realize? That what's the real power? God and godliness. What we see is what? Is a concealment. Now, let's take it a step further. Anyone know how God created the world? Huh? He spoke. Word. Dibur. God used, he uttered. God used the power of speech to create the world. We say it in our prayers, Hu Amar V'yehi. He said and it came to be. Right? So the author explains as follows. What does that mean, God said and it came to be? Let's use an analogy from us. Right? We have the power to speak. The power to speak. And then we speak. Now, when we speak, and some of us talk a lot, some more than others, right? Sometimes we think before we speak, and then it makes sense. Sometimes we don't think, it doesn't make sense, right? But when someone speaks, is that really who the person is? No, because you can say things you don't believe in. And many people do. Right? No. People say things they don't believe in. People say things they believe in and don't realize what they're saying. The point is when you speak, now sometimes it's connected, but speech alone is not an indication really who you are. You can be the nicest person and then for some reason to say something silly or stupid. Did you become all of a sudden silly and stupid overnight? No. You just, it was a slip of the tongue. Or you can be not a nice person and say all these nice things and mislead people that you're really a nice person. So in other words, what's the point of the analogy? Speech doesn't necessarily tell us who you are yet. Now, speech comes from where? The power to speak. In the power to speak, you have tremendous power to speak, infinite amount of words. Now, where does the power of speech come from? What, we just like spit out words? No, before we get to God.
Oh.
Well, everything's from God, but before, in ourselves, where do we have the power to speak from? We're jumping. One thing, one step at a time. I got it. We're going to get there, but you got to take one step at a time.
Or intellect.
A what?
Intellect.
Oh.
No, you're also jumping. Too many steps.
Jumping. You mean physically?
Yeah, where does the speech come from?
Your vocal
To your
cords.
voice, vocal cords, right?
No, obviously, but where does it come from? The shoresh. Where does it come from?
Your tongue.
True, but where does it come from? A step before. One step before.
Ideas.
Close. Our thoughts. Our thoughts.
Okay.
So our speech
Are we
comes.
going to say wisdom?
No, wait. One step at a time. Holiness is one step at a time. So our speech comes from the power to speak. The power to speak comes from what? From our thoughts. Our thoughts have letters to it. When you think, you don't think abstract. You think concretely, right? You think, and then the words spit out your thoughts. Now, sometimes they're very quick, but the point is usually you think something through, and then you present your case. Now, where do our thoughts come from? One step at a time. Where do our thoughts come from? Our emotions, our feelings, exactly. Now, feelings don't have structure. Don't have words, right? Words are in speech. Words are in thought, creating right? In our feelings. Feelings are like, almost like, in a certain way, like an infinite type of experience. It's feelings. You have to connect to your feelings, think about your feelings, and then you say your feelings. Articulate them. Where do your feelings come from? Huh? Our heart. What's the source of our feelings? Your intellect. You need data. Your intellect knows different things, and then you have feelings. If you didn't have intellect, how can you even feel? So you have intellect that gives you data, and then based on that, you have feelings. Now, let's trace this back to God. Look how far away the speech that God used to create the world, to the power of speech, to the thoughts, to the feelings, intellect of God. You see how far it's away? Yeah. Pretty far away. Nevertheless, God used that to create the world. What does that give us? It gives us two things. First of all, it gives us that when God created this physical world, we know God's infinite, and He created a world that's finite. Do you think creating this world had an effect on God? It made a change in God?
No.
No, it's words. It's words. You speak words, right? I didn't say I didn't say thinking or feeling, or even thoughts. You just spoke words. Does that make a dent in you? What's your philosophy and how you feel? No, it's words. It's words. So it doesn't make an effect in you. Saying also doesn't affect God. When God speaks, God created the world. It had no effect in God. God didn't change. That's point number one. Point number two is our words that we say compared to our intellect, our own intellect, the words have almost like zero value. I said that? I don't think that way. Because you can say things just talking without even processing any intellect or any emotions. Here, let me give you an example, right? Let's say this room was empty. Empty room. Totally empty. 4 walls. And the only thing the only thing in this room is just you. The only one that's in this room is you. And I put you in the middle of the room. And I tell you, I want you to meditate. Look around this room. To meditate. You know, and you look around the room, empty. There's nothing to even attach anything to. You start thinking about whatever you're thinking about. And you're like in this deep meditation. And all of a sudden, as you're meditating, a little bug crawls in, teeny bug, crawls on the floor. Does that make an effect on you?
Yes, of course, probably would.
A little teeny bug, not making any noise, making a little teeny bug crawling on the floor. Does that bother you?
No.
If you saw it, does it bother you, or does it?
You're deep in meditation.
Yes.
Again. Let's do it again. You're sitting in the middle of the room on a chair comfortably. You close your eyes and you're in deep meditation.
You're not looking at the bug.
You're not looking at the bug. You're in deep meditation.
You don't notice the bug, see the bug, or have it.
Exactly.
So no,
It doesn't affect you.
You're in deep meditation. You're thinking about all these beautiful things that you're thinking about, either your past vacation, your future vacation, whatever you like thinking about, right? Yes. And a little bug crawls into the room. It doesn't make any noise, and it's crawling around. You don't even know it's there. Does that affect you?
No.
No. Why not? It's your room. The only thing in the room is you. Because you don't see it, you don't hear it, it has no effect in you, has zero connection, zero value. That's the same way, just for analogy speaking, when God said, create this world, that's the same effect it had on God. That's number one. And number two is, if somebody walks into the room afterwards, right, and sees you sitting and meditating, whoa, you think he's going to notice the bug? No.
No.
Because the active, real power in this room right now is what? Is this guy sitting in a 30-minute meditation. And it's like, wow, that's a scene. Who notices bugs in anything? The same thing also with this physical world that you look around, that God created from speech. Why are we getting excited about the world? It's like that bug. Why are we getting excited about the physical part of the world, I mean? Why are you getting excited about a table? You know, people fight over tables. Families don't talk for months or years or decades over a table, which is a piece of concealment of God. Or over I said, or he said, or she said, which is all a concealment of God. Is there really an I, or a he, or a she?
No.
Is the bug really exist? I'm not saying it doesn't exist. The bug is in the room. But compared to the meditation that's going on in the middle of the room, is that bug hold any weight? Zero. Zero weight. So here, I said, she said, he said, you didn't listen to me. Hello? We're getting excited about the bug. When you have a major meditation going on here, when the mind is wandering all over the world. So in other words, the Alter Rebbe uses this as an analogy to bring out, what does it mean, Achdus Hashem? What does it mean, the oneness of God? The oneness of God means to show us that the only real existence is what? Is God. The infinite power of God.
It doesn't change.
God has not changed or is affected by the whole chaos in this world, the materialism, the distraction, the confusion. God has not changed. B, and more important, that the whole world really is truly nullified to God. Because the whole existence of anything in this world is only by the power and the concealment of God. So in other words, bring it back full circle. When a person realizes, and obviously next chapter the author is going to go into more in depth, and then we'll bring it back full circle, just to give you a complete class. So to bring back full circle, what the author is telling you here is, once a person realizes that what? What's the reality? The oneness of God. All the commandments are, I am God. Every one of the 613 commandments, and the rabbinical commandments, and any law in the Jewish law is coming from where? From the fact that I am God, you're God. You shouldn't have any other gods. So when a person fulfills any one of the 248 positive commandments, or you don't transgress the 365 negative commandments, at that moment, you're connecting to the oneness of God. God forbid if you don't do a commandment you could have done, or you transgress one of the negative commandments, what are you doing at that moment? You're disconnecting yourself from the oneness of God, or not connecting yourself when you could be deeply and more connected to the oneness of God.
But how can you disconnect when it's all God?
So the truth is, again, in reality, ultimately, you never really totally disconnect.
Just believe.
But you have a weak connection, like you're trying to surf the internet on a Wi-Fi connection. It's a weak connection, a dial-up connection. You're trying to use a dial-up connection when you limited. When you have a strong Wi-Fi DSL cable or T1 or fiber, and you're using a dial-up connection. The point is, if you want to keep your connection with God, with the oneness of God, on the highest possible connection, the highest possible speed, then every single one of the 248 positive commandments, or the rabbinical commandments, as you do them, it keeps the speed in full speed. God forbid if you transgress, you're basically cutting down on your speed. You're cutting down on the speed. So your goal really, hi, welcome. So your goal really has to be what? To realize that every one of the commandments, every one of the 613 commandments and the rabbinical commandments is a real opportunity to do what? To stay connected to the oneness of God.
Yes.
Now, therefore, based on, once you get that, and you really get that, who wants to be disconnected? Who wants low internet connection when you can have the highest speed? Who wants to be disconnected from the oneness of God and just focus on the concealment part when you can be connected to the infinite part of God, to the oneness of God? So when a person gets it and bears that in mind, think about it. Is it easy to observe every one of the 630 commandments with love and awe?
Yeah.
Sure, it's easy. Not only is it easy, the real question is, how can you not stay connected like that? In other words, if you have the opportunity to always be connected to the oneness of God, which is the real life force, and not get caught up in the concealment part, guess what happens?
Peace and joy.
Peace and joy. You're able to observe every one of the 630 commandments, 248 positive, 365 negative, all the rabbinical commandments with tremendous joy and happiness in a very easy way, as long as you bear in mind that by doing this, you're connected to the oneness of God, and God forbid if not, you're connected to concealment and missing the opportunity to connect to the real oneness of God.